everybody, I am Heather Briggs of My So Quilty Life. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking all about the Cozy Cottage block of the month, and we're going over the month 2 tutorial, making block 3 and block 4. But before we do that, I just thought I would show you where those blocks are in the quilt. I am going to be combining both of the block tutorials into one video. I feel like they don't need their separate tutorial videos because I already have a lot of the units completed. I think we'll be able to get both in one video. Okay, so here is the quilt all nice and rolled up. So I'm going to unroll her and we're going to see where these blocks are in the quilt. It's probably upside down. No, it's not upside down. Okay, good. Okay, so for block 3, you're making 2 blocks. They're actually these adorable little canisters. I don't really know what I call them. I think I call them canisters all the time, but I doubt they are. They're like the watering cans with the little flowers, which are right next to the door. So let me see if I can hold it up for you. Here we go. Here are the 2 blocks. You can see those right there. So there's one here and there's one here. Now you're making 2 of the same block. And then for block 4, you're just making these little bushes under the window, which have little flowers. Somebody at Quilt Market thought they were Easter eggs, which is still super cute, but they're actually little flowers in the bushes. So this is block 4. For block 4, you're making 2 of the same small bush and 1 big bush to make a block 4. Now, you will need your month 2 patterns. If you remember, we created a workbook, so we can go ahead and open up to our month 2. Oh, I love seeing this quote. So we can open up to our month 2 patterns and we can get started making our blocks. Okay, before we do get started making our blocks, I just wanted to show you the blocks in the top camera so you can see where they are. So first we have this one. This is block 3 and then block 3. They're the same block, you're just making them twice. So same color placement and everything about them is the same. Then for block 4, you are making this little bush right here, these bushes underneath our window in our cute little flower box. So these are actually the same, one is just rotated. So you'll see that in the pattern where I tell you to rotate them. You're making double the units and then putting them together, rotating one, so it's right here, and then this is the bigger bush. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all of my stuff together and we're gonna make these blocks. Okay, so here are all of my pieces. Again, as I mentioned in the first tutorial for month 1, I was gonna go ahead and speed things up a little bit by having some of my units already made. And since we're making 2 of the same block, it made it much easier to go ahead and get some of these units fully completed so I can walk you through. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up my month 2 pattern. And I thought I would mention really quick, this is the first time I have ever done a video in my studio at night. It is almost 8:30 or almost 9 o'clock at night, and this was really the only time I had available to film this tutorial. So I do apologize if it's a little bit harder to see. It is because it's nighttime and we're relying on these can lights in my room. So there might be some harsher shadows, especially in the top camera. It might be a little darker, but don't worry, I will still go over everything and I think you'll still be able to see everything. Okay, let's get back to the tutorial. So I'm gonna go ahead and start on page 1. So you're gonna go ahead and cut out everything it says in the block cutting instructions. I've already taken into account that you need 2. So you don't have to do the math. It's already done for you. So I've already cut out all of my pieces and now we're gonna move on to step 1. And step 1 is just drawing a diagonal line on all the squares that I specify in step 1. So go ahead and do that if you need to draw a diagonal line and we will move on to step 2. So for step 2, I've already made all of the units, but for step 2, we are making our J unit. So it's this little guy right here. It's one of the flower petal units. So you're going to be making 8 in each print. You have 4 different prints. If you see on your pattern, you will have 3 flowers sticking out of the little canister and 1 flower on the canister. All you're doing here is assembling your fabric I squares to the top corners of 1 fabric J, pressing toward fabric I to make your J unit. Again, you're making 8 in each print. The next thing you're going to be doing, and I'm just going to show you in this print because I've already assembled the blue one, is you're going to be making your L unit. So for step 3, you just need 4 fabric K. These are your print squares that go on your flowers, and 1 fabric L square, which is the flower centers. For mine, I'm making all of my flower centers completely different, but if you're following along with the Cottage Charm fabric, you will have all the same flower centers. All you're doing here is assembling those fabric K squares on the corner, pressing towards fabric K, and you have your L unit. You're going to be making 2 in each print. I'm going to set that aside. Our next thing we're going to do is we're going to be making an LM and an RM unit. And I've already gone ahead and assembled these, but if you look in your pattern, you're going to be having a left and a right. For your left, you're going to be assembling your fabric D square to the top right and your fabric D square to the bottom left, and pressing in towards your fabric M square. That's that green part right here. You're going to be doing the opposite thing for your RM unit. You're going to be assembling your fabric D to the top left, D to the bottom right, pressing towards fabric M. So here are our M units. Moving right along. Step 5. Now, step 5, you just have to pay close attention because you're not actually putting all of your flowers together, your flower units. You're making what's going to be called a middle flower unit. And you're going to be making 2 in each of your prints. So this is what you're going to be making. This is going to be my middle flower, and it's also going to be the flower that's in the canister. Now, what you're doing here, I actually have one not assembled right here. What you're going to be doing is you're just assembling your fabric E squares, so your fabric E squares to your J units, and then 2 J units to that L unit. And after you've done that, you should have this. Now, pay close attention. As I mentioned in last month's video, there are black arrows with numbers. Those indicate your pressing directions as well as your assembly order. So you'll see that you're assembling these 2 first, then you're assembling those 2, then those 2, then you're assembling them together. Now you want to make sure that you are nesting those seams right here and here. I do have a video, my first video on how I would approach it series will really help you make these cute little flower units. So if you are struggling with this, please check out that video. I will link it below. So you're going to make 2 in each of the 2 prints that you've decided for your middle flower in the bouquet in the canister, as well as the flower that will be in your canister. So this is going to be my flower in my canister. This is going to be my middle flower unit in the little bouquet of flowers. Okay, so I'm going to set all of this aside. And what we're going to be doing now in step 6 is making our middle stem unit. Now, I've already gone ahead and made that here, but I'm going to walk you through exactly what you need. So you do need 2 J units. They should be different colors. And you want to make sure that this top piece faces in. You're going to need your fabric G's. So I'm just laying this out right now. You also need your LM and your RN unit, and you will need 1 N unit. So following the arrows, you're first going to assemble these 2 together, so your G and J unit, followed by your LM unit. Next, you're going to assemble your G and your other J unit, followed by your RM unit. Once you have these assembled, you are going to assemble to your fabric in. Now, this block can be challenging, but if you follow the instructions very carefully, you make sure your units measure exactly what it says after each step. There is a measurement. And if you follow all of the pressing order correctly, everything should nest and you should have no problem putting this block together. If you're finding that your seams are becoming super bulky, even though you're pressing towards the direction indicated in the pattern, you can totally just press open. It is just fine if you want to press open. Okay, so after you've done that, you have your middle stem unit here for step 6. I will be putting these together in just a bit, but I am going to move this over to the side. Now we're going to be making our L flower unit and our right flower unit. So right here, we already decided what was going to be the left flower and the right flower. So you want to pay close attention that you are using the same fabrics for that. So this is going to be your L flower unit and your R flower unit. And I'm going to set those up. I'm going to show you exactly what that should look like. You will have an L unit, which is your center. You will have 3 of your J units. They will go on 3 of the sides. That is because you've already used the other side right here. So you only need 3. We're going to focus on our left flower unit. You also need 2 fabric E's, right there and there. You need 1 fabric F, that will go on the bottom, and 1 fabric A, okay? Once you have this, you're gonna, again, follow the order assembly and the pressing. So you're gonna be assembling those 2 pieces, come here and assemble those, come here and assemble those. Then you're going to assemble these 2 together, so you'll have a completed flower right here, and then assemble these 2 here. And you will get this adorable little unit. Again, you want to make sure that you are nesting your seams here and here. We're going to be doing the opposite on this side, so you still need 1 of your L units. You're going to have 3 J units, all the same color, just 3. You will have your 2 fabric E, and again fabric A on top with a fabric F, again assembling these 2, these 2, these 2, those together, and then assembling those to the top and bottom. So you will have this unit. This is your R flower unit. With each of these you're making 2. You're making 2 because you need 1 for each block. Okay, that is where I kind of left off right here, so I can now do the next step with you. So for step 8, you need your middle flower unit, which is this one. You need your middle stem unit, which is right here. And you need your L flower and your R flower unit. What we are making here is our flower bouquet unit, okay? What we are assembling first are these 2 pieces, and you want to make sure that this and this nest great. So what I like to do here is I like to go ahead and line it up before I get to my machine, and then flip it back 1/4 inch and see, does that look good? I think that looks pretty darn good. So that is what I will be assembling right there. But after you've done that and pressed, you will then assemble these, and you are pressing open in each of those seams. So this will make your flower bouquet unit. Okay, so I'm actually going to assemble that in just a second, but I wanted to move on because I like to assemble a lot of things at my machine at once. So I'm going to move on to step 9. So for step 9, you're making an LP and an RP unit. And I've already kind of got these a little farther than they are in step 9, but all you're doing here is taking your fabric P square and 2 fabric E squares and assembling them for 1 LP and 1 RP. But moving on to step 10, you're taking your fabric I square on the top right or top left and assembling to make your LP and your RP. And you're going to be making 2 of each. Now, the next step, step 11, you have to pay close attention. What you're doing is you're taking your LP and your RP and flipping them over. You want to make sure that your square right here, that I square, are facing in, and you're going to draw a diagonal line on the back of those. You can kind of see that in the diagram because we're going to be making this adorable little handle unit right here. And we need to make sure that we have those lines drawn. So for step 12, we do need our fabric O. We're going to align our LP unit on the left side and our RP unit on the right side. And you're going to assemble on that diagonal line and cut 1/4 inch away, pressing toward your LP and your RP. And this is what you should have. Okay, I'm going to set those aside, and we are going to be making our V unit in step 13. Super simple. All you need are 2 fabric H rectangles, 1 fabric V, and you're assembling and pressing towards fabric V for your V unit. Now for step 14, you need 2 fabric C rectangles and 1 fabric S. And again, assembling both of those and pressing toward fabric S for your S unit. Now for step 15, this is kind of where I left off. You need 1 V unit, you need 1 S unit, okay? You do need 1 O unit and 1 fabric U, and you are assembling each of those, pressing as indicated in the pattern, and you will have your canister top unit. You're going to be making 2 of those. All right, I'm going to be moving on to the next step. Next, we are making our canister bottom unit, and this is where that other flower that we fully assembled comes in handy. This is our middle flower unit. So what we need is our middle flower unit. We need 2 fabric R. These are going to be assembled first on the side. We need 1 fabric T and 1 fabric Q. You will notice that fabric T is a little smaller than fabric Q, and you want to make sure that fabric T remains on the top at all times. So you're going to be assembling all of these together to make your canister bottom unit. Okay, so now we're going to be putting together our canister bottom unit and our canister top unit. So let me set this aside. You are going to be putting together these units right here. So you'll have to imagine that these are already assembled here, but then I'm assembling this bottom canister unit. After that, we are assembling our 2 fabric B rectangles to the side. So I've made it this far. I'm going to go ahead and assemble step 18, and then we will assemble step 19 so I can show you that flower bouquet unit on top of the canister unit. So that's what I'm going to do really quick. Okay, so I just got done with step 17, step 18, just putting this entire block together. So here we have our final block. This is block 3. Now you're going to be making 2 of these little cuties. I know that they are a lot of effort, but I think they just add something adorable to the quilt. I will show you from the top camera. Here is one of our block 3s. Again, we have to make 2 of them, so we're not done yet, but I'm gonna put my other one together later because we're gonna go ahead and jump into block 4. Now block 4 is those little bushes underneath that window. So I'm gonna clear off my table and get ready to start on block 4. Okay, so here's the current state of block 4 for me. Again, I had already put together a lot of the units because this block is actually super simple. You're really just making all those corner squares for these adorable little flowers and then just assembling all your rows together to make those bushes. So I'm gonna go to my top camera and we're gonna get this started. Okay, so again, this is almost assembled. I've really assembled almost all the rows, but I am going to walk you through each step. So go ahead and turn to page 4 in your month 2 pattern, and you're going to cut out everything that you need. You're going to have 5 different colors for these flowers, and you're going to notice mine are different, obviously from the pattern because I'm not using the Cottage Charm fabric, but you're going to have a ton of green. It should all be the same green unless you want your bushes to be different, but if you are using the Cottage Charm fabric from a kit, you will have the same green I used in the pattern, and you will have a little bit of background. So we're going to move on to step 1. So for step 1, again, you're drawing diagonal lines on the back of your fabric squares specified in the pattern. But moving on to step 2, now it's going to be a little more challenging to understand what's going on here, but I think by now you guys all understand how to put these squares on the corner of your other square. So for step 2, you need 4 fabric X squares, so it's these greens. You got to pretend that this piece and this piece is not there yet. So you need 4 fabric X's and 1 fabric Y. You're going to be making 4 of each of these in each print. So you're going to have 4 Y units in each print. So there's 5 prints, you should have 20. So all you're going to be doing again is assembling your fabric X on the Y and pressing towards fabric X. So that is what you're going to be doing for step 2. Now for step 3, you're going to be assembling one of your Y units with a L rectangle and a Q rectangle to make your R1 unit. And you're going to be making 2 of those. So I have 2 of those here. We set those aside, or I'll put them back on my board here. Next, you're going to be moving on to step 4. So all these are really simple. Once you have your little Y units together, these little flowers, you're just assembling these in rows. So for step 4, you need 1 fabric J, 1 fabric U, and 1 Y unit. And you're going to be making 2 of these, 2 of the same. This is your R2 unit. Moving on to step 5, you're making your R3 unit. Again, you're going to be making 2. So you will have an N, a Q, and 1 Y unit, making 2 of those. And you're really pressing towards those green pieces. You're not going to really press in much. Now for step 6, you're just making your R4 units. You're making 2 of them. So you need 1 fabric K rectangle, 1 Y unit, making 2 of those. And for step 7, you're making 2 U units. So for these units, you need your Y unit and you need a W and a U rectangle. Again, making 2 U units. See, this goes together super fast. Once you have all of those little flowers or Y units together, it just goes so quickly. Our next, step 9, we're getting a little more complicated here because we're using our W unit, which we created in step 8 here and here. And we're just assembling our fabric H and our fabric I to that. So not too complicated. And you're going to have 2 R5 units. So these are the same here. Now for step 10, we're putting together the small shrub unit. So what you need is 1 R1, 1 R2, 1 R3, 1 R4, 1 R5, and 1 U unit. And you're going to be making 2 of the same. So let me just really quick grab all those pieces. So we need, I'm just going to set them to the side, R1s, R2s, and you're just going to pay close attention to the orientation of your pieces. You're making 2 of the same. So these right here, and you might notice that this row, it does not stretch all the way across, and that is okay, and neither does this one, because you are going to be putting that extra U unit that you created in step 7. So right here, our U unit will go right here, just like this. So what you're going to do first is pay close attention to the arrows with the numbers. So your first step is to assemble these 2 together right here. Then assemble that. Then you can assemble the rest of this. So I'm going to go ahead and do that so then we can move on to step 11. Okay, I just got done assembling the small shrub unit, and that is for step 10. So you're going to be making 2 of those. That's what I have here. Now if you're finding that it's a little bit more challenging to press to one side, you can go ahead and press open, and that is what I did here just to help that lay a little more flat. Totally up to you. So our next step is to assemble our fabric C squares to the corner. Now you should have your diagonal line drawn on the back of these. So you're going to be assembling your fabric C squares to each of the corners of these 2 small shrub units. After that, you're going to press toward your fabric C. You're then going to be adding your fabric A to the top. But before you do that, you want to make sure that you are rotating the right unit before assembling that fabric A on. So if you're following along with the fabric, with the Cottage Charm fabric, you should have your yellow Y unit on the top of your LSS unit. This is the left unit. And you should have your fabric, your purple fabric, on the top for your RSS unit. So just make sure that you have done that. So I'm going to set these aside and do those in just a moment, but I want to move on to step 13 really quick. So for step 13, we are making 2 U units, and I have them here. So these units right here, so you got to act like these pieces aren't on it, and you're just looking at that unit and that unit. So you're just assembling your fabric U to the bottom of this blue Y unit, and assembling 1 U to the top of the pink Y unit. So those are your U units. You're making 1 of each. Now for step 14, you're doing something similar. You are making your W units. So this is fabric W rectangle and this is a Y unit. This is fabric W rectangle and a Y unit. You're making one of each of those. Next, I'm going to set this one aside. For step 15, we are assembling our fabric E, P, F with our 2 U units we made in step 13. And this is what you should have after you assemble and press. And bringing this guy back, a lot of bringing and putting and all the things. Okay, so you're going to be making an R2 unit. So this is your R1. You're going to be making your R2 unit. In step 16, you need 1 fabric S, G, and V, and your 2 W units. And this is what it looked like after you press and assemble. After you assemble and press. Why do I keep saying press and assemble? Okay, now you're going to move on to step 17. You're going to be making your R3 unit. You just need 1 Y unit and 2 M's, and here you have that unit. Okay, and then moving on to step 18. This one's a little bit more complicated than we've seen so far. You first need to assemble your fabric W, Y, K, Y unit, and R. So you have 2 Y units, W, K, and R. You're going to assemble that top row. Then you're going to assemble your fabric T to the bottom. So this is your R4 unit. Now for step 19, you're assembling your Y unit with your J and your O to make your R5 unit. After you've assembled each of those, you're just aligning them up how they are in the pattern right here. So for step 20, you need your R1, R2, R3, R4, and R5 units. You're going to be assembling those together. Now, after you assemble those together, you're going to be assembling your fabric B squares on each of the corners and assemble on your diagonal line. So I'm going to go ahead and assemble this large shrub unit and assemble those fabric B's. So I'm going to do step 20 and 21 and assemble those other pieces that I have for the small shrub unit. And once I come back, we will be putting together step 22. Okay, so I have my RSS unit, my LSS unit. It's a tongue twister. And I have my, let's see, make sure I have it the right way, my large shrub unit here. Now, the only thing we have left to do is assemble our fabric D rectangles. This is for step 22, in between our little shrubs here. That's it. And then we're done. So we're just assembling our 2 fabric Ds to our LSS, our large shrub unit, and our RSS. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and when I get back, we'll be all done with our month 2 blocks 3 and 4. Okay, that's a wrap. I just got done making my block 4. So cute. I love these little shrubs. They're so adorable. So now we have our block 4, and you should have 2 of your block 3s. I still have to put the other one together, but this is what you have. 2 block 3s and 1 block 4. These were actually so fun to make. I just love the variety that this block of the month offers with the different blocks. You're hardly going to make the same block twice, which is so wonderful. I hope you're having such a wonderful time sewing these together. I cannot wait to see your blocks. Don't forget to label each of these blocks with your little block marker, as well as don't forget to utilize these note pages and reflection pages. Write down what you loved. Did you enjoy making one of these blocks? Did you find a tip from somebody else that you want to try on your next blocks? Feel free to use all of these resources that are in our workbook. Also, don't forget to color in your Bloom progress tracker. I still need to color in month 1, but I'm going to be all the way up here with month 2. So that stem is taking shape, and before long, our flower will be blooming. Also, if you are not interested in coloring, you can check off that you finished month 2. Don't forget about those bingo cards as well. There are some things you can go ahead and cross off once you finish month 2. Okay, so I'm so glad you joined me today. I hope you enjoyed making your month 2 blocks. I will see you next time for our month 3 tutorial in just a couple weeks. Bye guys!